Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Voices of Orion Project podcast. This is the amazing Diane, and I'm Nathan. And we were just on the Typical Skeptic Podcast UFO PSI channel yesterday. We did a great interview with Robert, and thank you, Robert. It was great to go on your show. And anyway,
can I just apologize because
sure.
I was only on my phone and it was pretty jittery and it was pretty disgusting, really. So I just wanted to apologize for anybody that was trying to watch it and enjoy it, because I don't know about anybody else, but I hate watching this jiggling thing. It just doesn't. Anyway, I just wanted to apologize because I couldn't get my computer to work, and the joys of living in the outback.
Yeah, plus we have
and thank you too, Nate.
I'm sorry.
Also, just want to say thanks to you too, because I'm really enjoying where this is going, and I think we will get to a point where we can actually maybe be of benefit to some people out there that need the help that we need to give them. So hopefully, all going well. Yeah, I just want to say thanks.
I hope so. And we can get some help ourselves.
Yeah, we need help.
Right. Okay, anyway, the topic tonight is have you ever wondered why some people are psychic and some people aren't? And the people who are psychic are only psychic to a certain low degree. And for the most part, it seems like someone else has control over their psychic abilities. They don't have full control over them. Also, too, have you also noticed that when somebody has a near-death experiences or has a near-death experience and also has or in addition has an alien abduction situation going on, that they always report that there's usually some sort of enhanced psychic abilities? What do you think, Diane?
Well, I think there's a lot of credence in that, and I think it's very interesting because, well, as you know, we have quite a large brain, but we don't really use much of it, do we? I mean, we tend to use, what is it? Is it less than 10% of our brains? I know we don't use much.
I've heard 10, 15%. I don't know.
Yeah, see. So, and we've got this massive big payload here that we're walking around with, but we're not actually utilizing to the best of its ability. So I think there's a lot of scope there. And like you say, it is interesting. And just on the near-death experiences, I think the reason why the psychic abilities maybe pick up on there is because you're being exposed to something that you're not normally exposed to, and people who are just doing their normal everyday thing, and then suddenly they've got this near-death experience that's happened to them, it just changes their whole perspective of life and existence. So they tend to look at things a little bit differently, and I think it does maybe open up the third eye a little bit and give us a different, outlook on life. What do you think?
What do I think? Well, when you're trying to figure these things out, one of the pieces of advice that I can give people, especially when you're trying to figure out what the ET presence is up to and why they're doing something, is to look at the impact that it has on society. And when you look at the final results of what they're doing, and you look at the impact that it has on, society itself, then you can reverse and actually look at everything else. And it actually answers your question in most cases. So let's think about it. And what happens when somebody tells a story on, say, like a show or say like on, social media as well? What's the impact on society, Diane? Would you like to elaborate on that a little bit?
Well, I'm not really sure, because I guess it would be different for everybody that's looking at it, or your perception of what's being put out there. So I think that's a bit tricky. What's your sort of thoughts on that one?
Well, it's expanding the consciousness. For one, if you have a near-death experience, and what it's going to do, it's going to reinforce your belief in the afterlife. It's also, if you're able to talk about it, if you're actually willing to do that, then it's going to help reinforce everybody else's belief in the afterlife. Same thing with the ET experience. The more people that have these experiences and then go public with their stories, the more of an impact it's going to have on society, and more people are going to become aware of it and actually accept that it's happening and not be so skeptical. Because now we're seeing the admission within, the government just a little bit, is that they are admitting that something is flying around out there, but they don't know exactly what it is. Of course, they're lying about that.
Just a little bit.
So as far as the impact on society, it's the way it should be looked at, and you can look at it however you like. But from my experiences and from the way it was explained to me by extraterrestrials, is that they profile people, and according to their personality type, say you're an outgoing person and you're more than willing to speak out and tell people about these experiences, then those are the people that we hear from, right? I mean, it isn't the people who don't want to talk about it that you see on these shows that really have an impact on society, or say somebody writes a book about it, or they allow an author to write something about them. Those people are willing to speak up, and these are the people that are having the experiences, obviously. Now there's other people, which I would put into a secondary category. So you would have what I would call the first category, and that would be social implants. And then on the other side of this, and these are the people who have these experiences, but they don't go public in the normal way. They just explain these experiences to friends and family, and maybe somebody that they meet online. So they have an influence as well. So what do you think about that? Do you think that extraterrestrials are actually creating these experiences for obvious, for other reasons, obviously, but that one of their goals is to use it to engineer society so that we're aware of them and we're aware of the afterlife at the same time? Because someone's in control of our consciousness. And well, I'll just leave it there.
Well, I believe that that's right to a certain extent. And I think, like we've sort of said before, there's, you've got a group of different people from different places in one area. So it's like this multiculturalism in the world. So you've got different experiences for different people. Because I think it's also interesting to find, you'll have someone that's a complete atheist that will have a full-on near-death experience, and they will suddenly be exposed to God or, angels or whatever. So what would be the benefit of that? I can understand the extraterrestrial side of it because they're wanting us to be aware of their presence. But the God side of it, and that the atheist that turns around and suddenly becomes God fearing because he's had this near-death experience, that really, I don't know how I sort of feel about all that. I know a lot of people that have had quite interesting near-death experiences, and they've all had different experiences. So I think that's worth noting in this sort of scenario, because if I have a near-death experience, is it going to be the same as yours? I doubt it. I really do doubt it. I don't know. It's very interesting because like I said, there's 100 different things that are coming into my head as far as different people that I've spoken to. But it is interesting that a lot of them have had absolutely no connection with God or the afterlife or that type of thing. Yet when they've been put in a situation where they are going to die or they have died, then suddenly they come back and their whole outlook on life changes, and it comes from a different perspective. So
right, it's an awakening process for sure. Either of those experiences are.
Yeah.
But have you ever heard of a Muslim having a near-death experience and actually meeting, say like a Jewish Messiah, or Jesus, the Christian Messiah, or some other religion other than their own? That isn't something that you normally hear about. Now, with atheists, sometimes they'll they'll meet what they consider to be their higher self, or maybe like a creator. They may have other experiences as well. And some people actually have hell, related experiences.
Yes.
Okay. Now, what if all of these experiences are actually catered to the person's belief system? Because that's what it appears to me. Now, the atheist would be kind of the wild card there, because I've heard atheists say that they thought that they were in communication with their higher self and they did a life review. But as far as, I don't know if I think I've heard some atheist stories too, that where they went to hell or something like that, or they were shown hell. So, but I think it really has to do with the individual's belief system. So now, if somebody's got control over consciousness, and from what I understand, that would be the extraterrestrials kind of standing in the way of our connection to source. And I think that's how you understand it, right? Is that correct?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that. I don't think that's quite true for everybody, because like you say, it's like the whole
Well, they're not having a
psychic
full-blown
ability.
experience. Those who are connected, they're only having just like a little tiny trickle of what the collective consciousness is when you're interfaced with it. Wouldn't you
Oh
say
yeah,
so?
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So you're not totally
Yeah,
cut
but
off, because we'd be pretty hopeless if we were.
definitely. Yes, I agree. Yep.
So, and there's a lot more to that, because if we were connected to source, we'd also be able to see things from the source perspective. That also gives you the ability to have telepathy and to have premonitions, to be able to sense what's coming, because within the source consciousness, the way I understand it from ET contact, everything is happening simultaneously. So the future is happening as well as the past and the present, because all of this is just an infinite mind, and we're just thoughts, and like I say, thoughts in a never-ending story. So if you were to travel through time, say you were to go into the past to try to change the present, it wouldn't happen. You're actually creating a new memory in the source consciousness. Because from what I understand is that a soul can't be destroyed, neither can a memory. Memories of source, because that's what souls are, essentially memories, thoughts, or for the most part, you could look at it and say that each of us are actually a point of attention for the source consciousness. Would you agree to that?
Well, yeah, but I think we're also still very much connected to source, and I think that the separation thing has been something that's been brought in by religion and been controlled and manipulated by man. So, and if that's done through ET consciousness, well, then that's another aspect of that as well.
Right.
So, but I
Because you have
don't
organized
think,
religion is what you're saying, and that distorts the whole picture.
yeah, it definitely does, because
Oh,
it's not about awakening us and spiritually making us stronger. It's about suppressing us and controlling us. So if we were pushing, or actually probably a better way of saying it is, if we were forcing ourselves to be more connected to source, and we were concentrating more on that connection itself, then that would open up a whole different world for us. Our problem is we're distracted and we're brought back into the physical body and the physical self. So we sort of tend to lose that spiritual aspect and that spiritual connection. So really, I think a lot of it too we do to ourselves. I know you're saying that the ET side of it is part of it as well, but
yeah, they're completely
I'm
plugged
not.
into it. I mean, they
Yeah,
have an incredible, spectrum of just awareness within the overall source consciousness, so they can
yeah,
actually see it from the perspective of source. So in other words, if I wanted to jump into a cat or interface with a cat's consciousness to see what it's like to be a cat, or I could do it with you or anybody else if they let me in, then that's like seeing it from the source perspective, because now
yeah,
you're sharing your consciousness. Source would be able to see it from all of us, like we're like nodes on the network.
yeah,
And so it's more like source looks at itself through all of us. And then you also believe that there's a separate aspect of that, which there obviously is, to kind of hold reality together. There has to be a referee here in a sense. There has to be something that holds the actual fabric of reality together, because we're not doing that. So that one, so in a way, the way I've always seen it is that the source consciousness in somewhat of a way, is that we are all kind of like the conscious part of it. And then the other aspect of it, which is the, the God aspect of it, is what I would say like the subconscious mind. So it sort of mirrors our own consciousness in a sense, because, and I think we have a collective subconscious mind that we all share, and that's the source consciousness. So Sonny, what do you think about that? I think we're on the same
that's
page.
part of, I mean, that's part of who we are. And again, I think we get too distracted here in our physical bodies that we separate ourselves from that spiritual aspect. And then we become confused in a sense, and we've been doing it for generations. So it's easier now to pop into your body, live your life, do what you've got to do, and then you die and you move on, and God recycles, so they say. But you talk about getting in contact with another animal or a tree, for example, and if you're like I do it when you're meditating, I will actually pull that consciousness in and think about the trees and what they're feeling. And look, it really is, it's a very powerful experience, and I can't really explain it until you actually do it and you experience it. It's not something that you can easily explain, because it's really quite overwhelming. And the same with, I remember going out camping once, and I'm sitting on this rock going, oh, I want to connect with an eagle, I want to catch up with an eagle and fly over, because it was beautiful. There was a big waterfall there in this beautiful area that the wedge-tailed eagles fly over. And I'm thinking, yeah, I just want to. And I did. I sat there for a good 20 minutes or so. And these eagles are always around this area. And then I'm thinking, oh, this isn't working. I really want to see what the eagle sees. And the funny thing was, here I am with my eyes closed, and I'm getting told, hey, look up. And I just looked up, and here's this eagle literally circling above me. It was just the most incredible, incredible thing. So we are connected to everything. The thing is, we just get sidetracked, and we get interfered with, we get controlled, we get manipulated. Things are changed so that we lose that. And it's up to us, I believe, to actually make the effort to reconnect with God, because everything on the planet now is pulling us away from God. It's saying, right down to if you're playing a video game, it's got God is dead written on the wall. Or it's, there's right. All this subliminal shit that's getting put onto our kids to say, look, God isn't real, it doesn't exist. Now, my son has had some amazing experiences, and he's actually said to me, Mum, someone's looking after me. And I go, yeah, interesting, that, isn't it? And it is interesting. So, yes, there is definitely lots of different aspects regarding this. And I mean, personally, I haven't had a near-death experience. I've had some situations where I haven't been very happy, and things have actually come in to redirect me. Now, whether that was my ET guides, my angelic guides, whatever you want to call them, or whether it was God, or it was just source energy saying, wake up to yourself, stop feeling sorry for yourself, just get on with it,
Well,
I don't know.
If you think about it, an angel's an extraterrestrial, wouldn't you say so?
Oh, no.
Yeah, but
I don't know about that one.
Yeah, but if you just look at the word, and what the word means, it means someone from outside of this planet.
Yeah, it does. And someone that's of a higher plane. Yeah, I know what you're saying. I can't.
That doesn't mean that's what it is. That doesn't mean that's what it is.
I know. It's like the whole
category.
Demon thing. Yeah. It's you say that you say that the ETs are demonic, or they can be the demons or the angels.
They play all sides, and there's
also they do, but are they
also spirits that pretend to be demons as well? And I don't know if you watch these haunting shows, some of them are staged, but there are some things that are happening out there where somebody gets scratched 3 times and they say it mocks the Trinity, and they're like, well, that must be a demon. Or if it's a really powerful type of haunting, like there's some really serious activity going on there, a lot of people would assume, a lot of the researchers who think from that orientation would assume that's a demon too, because it goes beyond the ability of a regular soul. But what if they're teaming up and working together? What if it's a group effort?
They could be, and that's exactly
and
right.
Usually what it is.
But I think it's important to not group everything in one pod and say, well, that's the answer, because I don't believe we've got the answers yet. And I believe that you're right, that there are some situations where that is happening. But there are other things that are going on out there that, no, I can't put in that same basket. And I think they need probably a little bit more attention, because there's just some stuff that just doesn't add up. And I can't make the dots connect. I'm working on it.
Yeah,
we're working on it.
And we're going to get other people to work on it too.
Yeah, absolutely.
Anyway, I have to apologize tonight. I was stressed out earlier and I had to smoke a little cannabis, and I'm trying to sober up with this coffee. And it's legal here in this state where I'm at, in the state of Maryland. So
I was going to say, you
sorry
should
to
just get on in and eat chocolate. That sorts you out. Or look, you need one of my cups. Look, mate, you need.
Yeah, well, I think I already see unicorns anyway. But
you'll be seeing them now, that's for sure.
I'm starting to get myself together. I was a little out of it earlier. Anyway, what I wanted to get into is okay, we've already talked about this stuff. Now let's talk about consciousness suppression and exactly what's going on there. Okay, so you have somebody has a near-death experience, or they have an alien abduction, and then they have enhanced psychic abilities. You only hear about these people if they've gone public, usually, unless you happen to run into somebody. So, and I was splitting people up into those two categories of social implant and social influencer, right? So what are your thoughts on the reasoning for that? I mean, why do you think that's happening?
I'm not really sure. I think everything, I don't believe in things not happening for a reason. So
well,
I guess
it's the touch people, because that's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah.
What do you think's actually? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Like you say, it's interesting that some people are willing to come out and talk about stuff, and other people aren't, and they've got to be sort of, encouraged to do so, because their story does help other people, and the other person that's out there that's having issues with the same thing that's happened to them, having that connection with that other person to say, well, look, this actually happened to me too, I think is terribly important, because rather than it separating you, and some people have had some terrible, horrible experiences, and it's only been many years later that they've actually come out.
Yeah.
And shared the whole story in the first place. So, but before that, they wouldn't even talk about it. In fact, if somebody brought up UFOs or near-death experience, they're probably gone. They're probably out the door. And
right.
So I think that's probably what's important. And also, as you know, the internet's brought people closer together too, so that they can share these experiences. I think it's terribly important to talk about stuff, because if you suppress it yourself, I mean, you're doing pretty much the same thing that your ETs are doing to you. They're saying, well, you have to be suppressed, you have to do as you're told, and we're going to filter what you're going to be able to put out there. So is that the way it's meant to be? No, I don't think so. And do we need to change it? Yes, I do believe we need to change it.
Okay, well, anyway, here's what I want to try to say. I have been able to create a lot of terminology through the contact experiences that I've had. So when we get into the subject of spirits and stuff like that, I'll refer to it as a nested consciousness simulation, because obviously these entities or souls are on another level of consciousness that we're not accessing. Okay, because we can't see them. Now, sometimes they'll show themselves to us and so forth, and some people can see them, whether they like it or not. Now, there obviously is some sort of organization going on here. Somebody is sitting behind the scenes, and they are manipulating the situation, and they are creating this, division with consciousness, because you have people who are psychic, you have people who are not psychic at all. You have people that have, once in a while, something will happen to them. They'll sense fear. They'll have a dream that comes true. And most people have those experiences, and they seem to be on the rise a bit too, because, and I'll get into some of that in maybe in a few minutes, but what do you think is going on there? And I'm actually playing dumb, of course, because, I have my own whole concept to share. Dianne has hers. and we're getting on. Is there somebody in the room with you?
Yeah, my dog is sitting here talking to me, looking at me with big eyes, and
Okay.
yeah, she's here. I'll just when I start talking about stuff, she often pops in and says,
Yeah, she wants to be
you know,
part of
hello,
it.
but she actually talks. She'll sit there and talk to me, so she's quite cute. But I've had some interesting stuff happen with her too, and yeah.
Yeah, I have psychic
How
experiences
long
with my
did you
dog too.
did you go?
I haven't
That's
had
not
any with the
cool.
cat though, but I had, I'm really close with the dog. I can
Well,
think of things, and then I'll actually, trigger him to do something just by thinking of it, but not actually
yeah,
doing anything.
that's
Because
exactly right.
yesterday I made something to eat. I was, frying some eggs and stuff, and he wasn't coming out. He was asleep. And I guess at some point he was awake. But when I don't, when my attitude is, or that, like say I have an idea where I'm not going to give him any, like I've already made that decision, is what I'm trying to say. He usually
Oh, you
doesn't come out.
meanie. You're a
But
big meanie.
but the moment that I thought about frying him an egg, and he actually came out, and he was actually, I mean, his mouth was disgusting because he had these two strings of slobber hanging.
Salivating.
And he looked at his bowl when he came in the room. That was the thing too. That's the giveaway. He knew that I was making him an egg. Now I've made him eggs. I've actually made myself egg sandwiches before. And when I'm not giving him anything, he usually doesn't, hang around. He's usually asleep, or he lays there, or he's doing something else. It's only when I think about actually giving it to him. And actually one time, I thought about I thought about his leash really intently, and I thought about taking him for a walk. And without doing anything, I was on the couch. He actually got up, walked over to where, the leash is, and actually stood there, and he looked at me.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
animals are
yeah.
telepathic. So,
Definitely.
so let's get into this now. If animals are telepathic, okay, and they're able to have this interaction with each other, and it looks like it's very well organized. They're not like they're not stepping on each other, not running into each other. They're not just like, because if they turned off our ability to, speak and, to sign to each other, or, to communicate in any other way, can you imagine what would happen? It would be total chaos. People would be walking into each other. They'd be having accidents. There would just be total chaos, and everyone would be so frustrated and angry that they can't communicate. I mean, it would be a total meltdown of society. I think there should be a movie about that, where suddenly nobody can communicate, and then people start getting angry and they start attacking each other. Then there's a small group of people who can actually hear, speak, and all that. And but everybody else is in this kind of like this state where they can't. I think it'd be an interesting movie. But anyway, getting back to what I was saying, and that was the weed talking. Normally I wouldn't think of something like that, or maybe I would, I don't know. But what is causing this? I mean, so somebody has a grip on this. And why are the ETs completely psychic? And why are we so dumbed down and also unable to govern ourselves? Because the government can keep secrets, and they can keep secrets in their own ranks by compartmentalizing things. So one office doesn't know what the other's doing, and they're right next to each other, and they're not allowed to talk to each other. So what's going on there? Who's in control? What do you think?
I don't know. I think you're back to, you ask who's dumbing us down. I think we are. I think we dumb ourselves down a lot. Secondly, we're being governed, as you say, and we touched on that with Robert, didn't we? About, do we really know what it's like to be really free? And none of us do.
No, we don't.
Because we've never been really free. I mean, you're born into this chaos, but it's organized chaos, and it's organized by people that are much cleverer than us. And I mean, they have the abilities that we talk about, and we have the abilities that we talk about. It's just that we're directed, we're pushed over there to do, go and get yourself a job. Oh, when you do a job, you have to use your hands, you have to think this way. So you're conditioned.
Everybody's plugged into the matrix.
Yeah, exactly. So you're conditioned, and you're conditioned from birth. You can't do this. Your parents start, actually. Mm-hmm. You can't do that because you'll get hurt. You can't do this because, well, that's not the way everybody else thinks. And so there's this, it's like that psychological thing, where they do that test with people, and it's quite funny, actually. They got 4 or 5 people, and all the people are in on it except for one person. And it's like, then they say, okay, have a look at this. Okay, which line is longer? And you can clearly see it's line number 2, but everybody else says, oh, line number 3. So the first time the guy goes, oh, line number 2, and he's a bit confused. And then they put out another one, and then they say, oh, and then after a while, he will say what everybody else says because he actually wants to be part of that group. Now, there's a lot in this.
Right.
And you talk about a psychological warfare that's going on, and that's exactly what this is about.
Well,
so we need to sort of break free from that a bit, and we need to start being our own individual people, I believe.
And if you look at the elites, I'm sorry,
yeah.
you have something else to say?
No, that's okay. Yeah, I was just well, I mean, they're the ones that actually they've got all the information, right?
Who, the government or the ETs?
Born into that. Oh, the elites.
Okay, well, I wanted to point something out real quick, and then I want to get your thoughts on it. If you look at some of these things that have come out of the government, say, for example, the U.S. government, there's stuff on remote viewing that came out, I think around 2010 or 2012. There was John McMonigal's remote viewing of Mars is in there, and that's and if you all you have to do is you go online and you look up CIA Mars documents, Mars remote viewing documents, you'll come up with this whole, well, actually there's a lot of these, but what you find out is that the elites are heavily interested in psychic abilities. They're very, very invested into it. They use the military, they use they have all sorts of different experiments that they run, and you can actually read these documents that are declassified by the CIA. So they're interested in it while they're telling us that it doesn't exist and there's nothing to see here.
There you go. So you're kind of answering your own questions here, aren't you? So again, we're being separated, segregated, and controlled, manipulated. So they're cherry picking these people out that do have psychic abilities. They have the knowledge to expand that and to,
such as Ingo Swann, for example.
Exactly.
Perfect example.
Yeah. So the information is there to pick up our psychic abilities and to develop them further. But you and I aren't going to get that information unless we go looking for it, and unless we actually go and develop it ourselves. So, but can you imagine being picked out by somebody and put into a situation? Because I don't know, when you're doing work with other people that are doing psychic stuff, it's incredible the energy that's in the room, and it's also incredible what more you can pick up on that you wouldn't be able to on yourself. So I can understand why they are picking these people out, and they're putting them in a room and saying, okay, we're going to shut all the doors and windows, and now we're going to influence the way we want you to think and the way we want your psychic abilities to develop, because they can do that and it would work. But you and I aren't privy to that information. That's, as you say, more controlled through the government and the hierarchy of what we live under. I mean, you've got your ET hierarchy, and then you've got another one here. How do you feel about that?
Well, it's like it's a spiritual prison, and then you have a gang running it, or because the warden's the ET, but then you have a gang that's under the warden that's running operations within the spiritual jail. So, but that gets to my next thing, and I've got you trapped now because we've covered everything, and I'm going to corner you with this discussion, and I'm going to explain to everybody that over the course of my life, I've had psychic abilities turned on and then turned off, and they happened to me at certain key events. One example of it is I had this reaction to the allergy drug Singulair. I think I talked about this with Robert, didn't I? Okay, so I'm pretty sure I did. And I was on the stuff for about 10 days, and then all of a sudden I developed an extremely high fever. I was hallucinating, my muscles locked up. It was so bad that they had to put me on heavy IVs because they needed to flush my urinary tract, because they were concerned about tiny little particles of muscle getting lodged in the lining of my I believe it's my kidneys. And so they were concerned about that. And anyway, okay.
Sorry, I'm having two conversations here. Sorry.
I know. So anyway, yeah. So after that, it was like 3 weeks, and I was having empathic experiences, and I was having telepathic experiences. In one case, I was standing in a UPS store to ship a package, and I was standing in line. I was the end of the line. There was 3 guys ahead of me, and we were standing in normal proximity to each other. And then there was this woman who came in, who went to the far corner of the store, and I instantly sensed that she had been raped, and that she was very uncomfortable to be in line that close to 3 or 4 other men. And so then that happened, and then I had several experiences like that. And what was weird about it is that after a couple of them, I started to confront people on how they were feeling. And instead of them asking me what, like saying, how do you know how I was feeling? I wasn't showing anything. I didn't say anything. I didn't do anything. They automatically started to open up to me and talk to me like we already had a conversation going. It was very, very strange how that was happening. And then at the end of those 3 weeks, it stopped. And then I had a voice tell me that you need to find other people like yourself, and they're on the internet. I've had plenty of experiences like that before. I've also been turned completely off. And then I realized that I always had a low level psychic ability taking place, because when I was fully turned off, it was like having my ears and my nose plugged up and just literally not being able to speak. I mean, it had that kind of like cone of silence feel to it. It was like there was a whole part of my reality that was missing, that I took for granted and didn't even realize that I had and other people didn't.
Yes.
And it was just that sense of everything, that you're kind of connected to it, but it's very, very weak and subtle. And what would happen is when I would have these spikes in psychic awareness, I would be more sensitive to everything, and then it would go down to a certain low level where I would think that I'm not psychic. And so anyway, I think everybody's level is actually being increased, and that's what I've been told by the extraterrestrials, is that they're increasing everyone's intuition across the board. And then you have a fairly large group of people that are stuck in this kind of mass formation psychosis, and they're not really connected to this. And that's where you were talking about people are conditioned to shut it out. When you really get stuck, like trapped in the mass formation psychosis, and it's been induced by the media and by programming from your peers, you're going to drown everything.
Fear factor.
I'm sorry. What?
Fear factor too. I mean, people are afraid of things that they don't really understand. So you've also got that, that side of it as well. So whereas like I've grown up with different psychic things that have happened to me, and it's just been accepted, a lot of people would have that experience and then go, whoa, I'm not really sure how I feel about that. So they push it away.
Yeah,
because it would go in the too hard basket. Yeah. And to give you an example of that, my son and I, I was doing some theta healing, and our dog got quite sick. And I said to Ryan, how about you have a go at doing some theta healing on her, which is, it requires you actually going into their body and actually seeing what's going on, and then bringing the healing energy to that. Now he was so good at it, and it was just so natural for him. And I said to him, you should really do this. You're really good at it. And he said, no, Mum, I don't think I can handle it. And I said, what do you mean you can't handle it? He goes, I don't want to be seeing inside people's bodies. I don't want to be seeing their insides. It's not something that I'm comfortable with. And I said, well, fair enough. I get that. But see, again, he's different. He can see things. I don't. I see a little bit, but it's more of a feeling, and it's more of so when I say to you, you've got somebody there on your right shoulder and they look like this, it's not that I can actually see that entity there. It's more in my head that I can see what's
I know
there.
exactly
what
you mean. Yeah, totally. That's where I'm at actually right now with my development.
Yeah.
And hopefully, well, if things go right with these life engineers and with this hierarchy, hopefully, the two of us will get some enhancements, which brings me to my next question, or my next topic. How are they able to control this, since they've stepped in between us and the source consciousness, creating an augmented reality, which I call the planetary consciousness simulation? And I think most people could agree that we are definitely inside some type of augmented reality. And I'm not just talking about the augmented reality that the government creates with propaganda and our belief systems and institutions that that create these belief systems and push it on us. I'm not talking about that augmented reality. What I'm referring to is that it's the augmented reality of our consciousness, which makes us different from the extraterrestrial level of consciousness. So I think we can all agree, and I know you agree with me too, there's something going on that makes a difference. And you can't
Are
just
we
blame it
different
on
from
conditioning,
DCs?
because here's the problem with conditioning. We're only seeing it from the perspective of having very low psychic abilities. And we can see how the conditioning would make people shut these things out. But nobody's getting very far with their awareness. I mean, there's people that are very tuned into this stuff and work very hard to, you know, to seek enhancements. They meditate, they do a lot of different things, and they follow a lot of different, you know, belief systems, no matter what it is. There's people who are highly dedicated, but they're only getting so far too. So that means there's somebody standing in the way and somebody's altering our reality. I think we both agree on that, don't we?
Well, yeah, but I think you're also forgetting that human beings, I mean, you're right, I agree to a certain extent, but I also think that we as human beings limit ourselves. I think because we've had thousands of years of being put down, manipulated, indoctrinated, whatever you want to call it, we have that, it's built into our system that we can't do things, you know, we can't reach that level of you know, godliness or whatever you want to call it, because we believe that we're not good enough, or it's really a belief thing. I also believe there's a lot in that, because just having different experiences and seeing the way people react in different situations, especially when you're trying to do some sort of intuitive work, it is very interesting to watch them limit themselves. Now, we talked about ego, and ego is a big one, because ego is something you really want to try and step away from if you can, because ego will damage you. It will damage you in so many ways. You have to get rid of ego. Now, I know we say we have to have an ego to have a healthy existence and physical, you know, whatever, but it's more damaging than it is good. It actually stops you from achieving a lot of things, and people don't realize that.
Yeah, such as
And
unconditional love. I don't think you can unconditionally love someone and have a very, very strong ego, because the ego will actually, you know, corrupt your intentions.
absolutely, absolutely,
It also gets in
because
between you and others.
yeah, and you know what, when you're doing intuitive work with people, and you've got that flow happening, and you'll actually have ego step in and say, oh, well, you know, that's not quite right, and you need to put this in there, and you have to say, no, shut up, because that's not what I want. This is not the information I need. I need pure information from a pure source. And it's really tricky.
Well, it's also the imagination fueled by the ego is what you're talking about.
Well,
They refer to
or
that
it's just
that's
pure ego.
psychic
It's
front
just
loading
ego.
too.
Yeah, well, see, I had a lot of that too when we were doing meditation groups many years ago, and I had to get out of it, because the whole ego thing was absolutely doing my head in. And these people were, oh, you know, I've had this experience and I've had that
Oh, it's,
experience.
yeah, right.
Yeah, and you're just like, yeah, dude, that's amazing. But then it was just it I can't really explain it, but
You
the
certainly
more
get more out of
spiritual
it if you're
aware
not
you
about
are,
self-promotion and somebody would have this experience and brag. And then it
yeah.
goes to their head that I had this experience. And then they start thinking, and they look around the group. They're like, I had the best experience today, and I must be more
And I'm so
advanced than
much better
them.
than you.
Right. Yeah, I had that. I was a group contactee for a while. I actually still am, but it's just a smaller group. But that was the problem that I saw. And then what the ETs would do is they would build these people up that had this ego issue and set them up for a big failure of their own causing. And you know, so that and it was always these it was a lot of lessons and stuff like that. Like they would give us implanted dreamscapes where we would have to do something heroic. One time I had an implanted dreamscape where I was being attacked by someone, and then I fought back and I killed them. And right as I looked at them, it was a little infant. And I completely broke down and I cried my eyes out. It was weird because I had other dreams where they had actually, where I had to fend off like some sort of monster or something like that. I don't remember exactly, but that was the one that I remember. And
Wow.
then I had a dream where it was like 3 heroic things that I had to do. I don't remember what they were specifically, but I had a choice to do it or not to do it. And I always chose to do it. And it was like they were actually, it was sort of weird, but you could tell they were artificial dreams. They weren't actually your own. And a lot of times what they'll do is they'll make them so vivid and so intensely powerful that you can usually tell the difference, or there'll
Yeah.
be some other clue in there because they want you to recognize that.
Yeah. Well, see, it's like this whole journey that we've been on in the last couple of years, and me sort of connecting with my guides and asking them and saying, look, I don't really understand like what's going on here, and to be given this, like there's just so many layers, you don't quite understand it. There's more layers than you'll ever get through your head, like it's so complex, and it's multifaceted and multi-layered, and we can't explain it to you in a simple 5-minute talk. It's something you're going to have to learn over time, and I think again that's why we've been connected, because of your experience and what you've been through. I haven't had, see, you sit there and you say, oh, I'm not very telepathic or whatever, but you have this direct contact with your ETs. You're talking to them all the time. My contact with my guides, whatever you want to call them, is different, and it's more I don't know, it seems to just come in at the right time when I need it, or if I'm going through a really crappy day or whatever and I need that bit of a kick up the arse, I'll get it from them. It'll be like, oh, just fully pick you up, dust you off,
Yeah, I get
off
a
you go,
mixture of
keep
it.
going. Yeah,
I
so
actually get a mixture of what you're going through, but I also get to have a lot of conversations. And
yeah,
so that actually is, very, very helpful to me because it helps me kind of stay on track with what they want me to do and with other things too. I mean, it's a lot of different advice. And you've had advice where they gave you advice on something to help yourself when you're feeling sick. I've had that too.
yes,
They let
yes,
you know when you're sick, like, like you've got COVID, you better get some medicine,
yeah.
something like that. But let me see. Okay, I
It's
have to
fascinating
corner.
though, and I think we need to embrace it. Like really, people tend to, they work in an office or whatever, a 9 to 5, and maybe they'll get in their head, oh, you need to ring such and such, and they go, oh, I'll
Yeah,
do it
they
later, and then
it's
they
the inner
find out that
voice.
person, yeah, died or whatever. And then they think, oh, I really should have rung them, when I had that message. And I still get that now. I'm like, yep, you need to catch up with that person. And I
Mhm.
try my hardest to do it now because I know there's a reason that that's happening. So I believe our psychic abilities are there. We have dumbed ourselves down a lot because we don't accept it, or it's easier to do because we're in a physical body. It's easier to do it, physically than it is to do it mentally or telepathically or whatever. So we sort of, I think we've done a lot of it to ourselves. And you think about it,
Well, we do.
generations and generations of it, and it's just now it's second nature. We need to stop and go, we're not really a body. We're part of something much, much, much grander. So this is just one little drop in the ocean that we've got here, to try and make something. I mean, this is our experience, isn't it? This is our physical experience. And you're
Mhm.
right, it's an augmented reality, or it's a reality separate from where we're supposed to be.
Right, right.
Yours, you have this idea that when you die, you're going back to your how do you say it? Hajayan.
Yeah, my
Um,
Hajian family.
yeah, you're going back to them. Whereas, see, me thinking like that just terrifies me. I think the last thing I want to be doing is leaving this reality and going back to another reality that's similar. I just think that's horrendous.
Yeah, but do you have
So
that feeling of home though, as someplace else?
yeah, home, back where I'm supposed to be, back with God, back as a collective. Yes,
Well,
yes.
the
not,
existence
not,
that we had, look, I mean, that's exactly the way I sense it as well, because
yeah,
when I was there, we weren't, we were fully connected to each other. Everybody was a thought away. So it's really the same thing. And yeah, and the only difference is that you don't have something to associate it with, like a family or a circle of friends. although we have that, connection, I don't know how much of that connection you feel as far as a past ET existence. I know we had the past life connection, but I've always seen it from the start is that we also had a long friendship after that, after we had that lifetime together in Egypt, and it never went away. It was, we always were really, really close. And that's the sense of it that I get. Do you get
But you
that same
think about
sense?
that, and you multiply that by 10,000 lifetimes, 20,000 lifetimes, and you think about the connections that you've had on the planet, and you still have on the planet. It's just that you're not aware of it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
But you're not going to make friends and actually stay friends with every one of those people. You're going to have a certain circle of people that you're always in contact with that really are, or so much like yourself, or you really just love being around that person, and you have this really good, like a loving relationship with them.